stories. This story is about someone that used to be my friend. I met my former friend Rita when she was 13 years old. Rita was from a nice upper middle class neighborhood. Her mom was pretty wealthy. She had a great life growing up. She was popular, and everyone loved her. Then she got addicted to drugs, and she even used and abused her best friend Ashley, because Ashley was easy. Ashley had dated just about everyone in my group, including me. Rita got Ashley addicted to drugs and even started pimping Ashley out. Ashley finally got sick of Rita and stopped hanging out with her. Afterward, Rita started dating my friend Derek, even though I told him that he was making a huge mistake. Derek became a piece of shit and allowed her to spread vicious rumors about me, and even ruined all of my chances at having any girlfriend by telling them that I was a woman beater, a rapist, controlling, a drug addict, and anything else that she could think of. The reason she did this was because my so-called friend was insecure around me. Derek hated me because I talked to lots of women and had lots of friends. Derek used to be a reclusive loner. He was a loser. He never did anything. Never left the house. Never had any friends. I introduced Derek to my group, and he slowly wormed his way into the group and started causing drama when there was never any drama in the group. My cousin Danny convinced me to hook him up with my brother's ex-girlfriend Nancy. Nancy was kind of a slut. Nancy liked to do things with guys, but she wouldn't have sex with them. She dated a lot of guys. Derek wormed his way into her heart. Then he cheated on her with Rita. Rita was Nancy's best friend. Rita and Derek broke up and then got back together. Derek lived with Rita in the suburbs, and they were clean for a bit, but then they decided to move to the trailer park, and they started abusing meth, and then they broke up. Rita went to jail for shoplifting. Derek went to jail for selling meth to an undercover cop. Rita stopped smoking meth and started shooting up. Rita became a junkie, and somehow everyone still believed in her lies. I honestly just think people hated me from the start because I wasn't fake as fuck like they were. I wasn't shy about my opinions, and I also didn't like drama, and I was afraid to go to jail. I was always worried about my family's opinion of me. I used drugs in the past and did some sorry shit to people, but I apologized and moved on with my life. However, Rita and Derek would do something to someone, start a bunch of drama, then pretend to be someone's friend, use them, and then run away and blame the person they fucked over for the problems they themselves caused. Rita stole from another friend of mine, and even seduced him, and she only did it to cause drama between my friend and his girlfriend at the time, so that she could sit back and watch it unfold, or be a part of it. Rita now lives behind a dumpster, and has a new boyfriend every time I see her. She's been to jail nearly 20 times for the same charge, and even lost her kid, and doesn't even give a fuck. Rita, you could have had everything. You had all of the advantages, and you threw everything away. You ruined my life, and the lives of countless others, and yet you continue to get ahead, and people continue to take you in, and somehow, even though deep down in their hearts everyone knows you are a piece of shit with no redeemable qualities, and that you lack any remorse for anything you have ever done to anyone, they still want to be around you and still feel sorry for you. I hope one day that you finally get what's coming to you. In the fall of 2013, I was in my first year of college. I loved my campus, and even though I loved my roommate, when a private room in another dorm opened up, I took it because I thought I would study better in my own space. After years of sharing rooms with my sisters at home, I was also excited to be alone for the first time. The new dorm was a lot cheaper and not what I was used to. It was kind of the campus joke, the oldest dorm still standing. The community floor plan didn't afford residents much privacy, but everyone told me we were like family here, and it was definitely true. There was always someone in the kitchen, the study rooms, and the lobby watching TV, or hanging out on the benches outside. You could not help but meet people everywhere you went. About a month later, after moving in, I started seeing a lot of one guy in particular. He was always sitting outside, greeting me when I came in or out. I'd say hi to be nice, but I could not tell if he lived in the dorm or if he was even a student. It seemed as if he had sat on the bench 24/7. After so many days, he eventually asked me for my phone number. When I told him I would not give it to him, he got really pissed off and started screaming at me and calling me a bitch and saying no one would want you anyway. I just walked away, rushing to meet my friends to get away from campus and him for a weekend. After that day, though, things got worse. I could not go anywhere without him seeing and trying to corner me. Every time I came near the dorm, he was there. I started walking the long way and going in the back door, hoping I would not run into him in the elevator or the stairwell, but I still didn't feel safe. I saw him a few times a week, and he'd always yell at me, run after me, or go on long rants about how I had to have sex with him. Once I brought a friend to my dorm, and when he didn't respond to his threats, he threw a glass bottle at us. It just missed my head as it broke on the door beside me. About a month later, in November 2013, I finally reached my breaking point. The guy would wait outside the dorm and follow me whenever I left, wherever I went. I went outside to get dinner one afternoon, and he stayed right behind me, even getting in the same line as me. But instead of ordering, he just turned around and followed me through the food court. I was too scared to sit down. I just kept walking, hoping to lose him in a crowd. When I finally turned around, I saw him standing not too far away with a group of friends. He waved and smiled. I just stared back, and as if there were no one else, he started yelling, saying he was going to strangle me, cut my throat, and rape me. He ended with, "That's what happens when you don't speak to me, bitch." I walked straight out of the food court and to the campus police department. The officer who met me in the lobby was the first person to put a name on what was happening. I was being stalked. Once I reported the stalker to the police, I felt like a weight had been lifted, but I quickly realized that everything wasn't going to get better right away. I did not know his name, or if he even lived in my dorm, so I could not identify him. I had to write a detailed report of everything that happened that day, and go over it with multiple officers. That night, one of them came to my dorm. I was supposed to walk around and come back to the officer if I saw him. Thankfully, he was in the lobby, so I could finally ID him to the police. The officer sent me back to my room, and I hoped that would be the end of it. But my problems only multiplied. Everyone in the lobby saw the whole dorm was talking to me. For someone who seemed crazy, the stalker had a lot of friends everywhere I went. People were calling me a snitch. Once I was cornered by a group of men who yelled at me loud enough for everyone on the quad to hear. They wanted me to apologize for him getting into trouble and telling the police that I was lying because they said it was obviously made up. Day by day, it felt like things were just getting worse for me, and better for him. I was told that they moved the Stalker to another dorm while they looked into the case, and that I'd have to meet with the assistant dean of students. One day on my way to a meeting, I ran into the Stalker. I thought he had already been arrested and left campus. I knew he had been instructed not to talk to me, but he walked right up to me anyway and grabbed me by the arm. He begged me to tell the police to drop the case, saying, "It was just a joke. You don't have to be like this." I pulled away and started running, but he ran after me. I don't know when or where I lost him, but when I arrived at the campus police station a few minutes later, he wasn't behind me anymore. That day, an officer took me to the country courthouse to talk to a judge and get an arrest warrant. The Stalker and his friends weren't the only people who made it difficult. One of the officers who took my statement asked repeatedly if I'd done anything to lead him on, and if it was possible that I was only scared because I wasn't used to being approached by men. I learned later that he didn't act on the arrest warrant until almost 3 weeks after the judge signed it, because he didn't think it was a serious matter. I also had trouble with the dean's office. I once missed an email from the assistant dean requesting another meeting. By the time I read it, I was at work and couldn't leave. I had to wait days to get another meeting. But when I did, the AD told me he was beginning to doubt my story because if I was really scared, I would have met him earlier. I could not believe it. I had traded work shifts, skipped classes, and missed sorority meetings to meet with campus police administration just to be shuttled between campus and the courthouse. I was more pissed off than scared because at this point I felt like I was being jerked around. I got the feeling that the people wouldn't believe me unless I was completely hysterical. As much as I tried not to focus on it, the case eventually had an impact on my class and work performance. Returning from Thanksgiving break, I confided in one of my peer counselors. She helped me get in contact with a man who worked in campus administration, who told me he would come with me to the dean's office if it made me feel better. With his help, I finally got to meet with the dean of students, who promised me that he was going to work on my case and that I would communicate with him instead of the AD. He also said I might have to attend a hearing where the Stalker and I would both tell our sides of the story and let campus faculty decide what to do about it. I didn't want to go, but the dean said it might look bad if I didn't. If they decided my story wasn't believable, I could be punished for filing a false report or breaking the university's honor code. I was even angrier now than I was at first. I didn't seem scared enough for them, and now a fear of being in the same room as my Stalker was perceived as dishonest. About a week later, though, I got an email from the dean. I was to make a list of all interactions I had with the Stalker, including dates, times, location, what was said, and more. It was hard, but at that point I was glad that I had told people about the stalking. I looked through text with my boyfriend and sorority sisters, Facebook messages to my family, and old journal entries. I put together as many details as possible, submitted it to the dean, and waited for a reply. Finally, after what seemed like the longest and worst semester ever, I received notification that I wouldn't have to attend a hearing after all. My Stalker was being expelled from the university. He would be arrested if he ever came to the campus again. Last year I was served a subpoena in my dorm. The case was being continued by the city police, and they didn't bother to notify me until the day before the court date, because the university's decision to expel him stood regardless of the city's ruling. And because I didn't feel prepared to go to court, I decided to ask to drop the charges. I met with the prosecutor earlier the next morning and told her that I wasn't interested in pursuing the case. That was the last time I ever saw my stalker. I now have an apartment close to campus. When I'm leaving work or meeting at night, I try to go with a group or stay on the phone with someone. My sorority sisters are always checking in on me, and that makes me feel safe and cared for. Almost 2 years later, I'm not very scared of being alone anymore, but it does scare me to know that many other people on campus have gone through the same thing that I did, and probably didn't get as much help with it as I did. Even though millions of people are stalked in the United States every year, it's been referred to as the silent epidemic because so few of these people report it. Although it was difficult to go through, I'm glad that I reported my stalking. Sometimes I still struggle with my decision. I'm afraid that people will find out and look at me differently, or that some people still don't believe me. I was afraid to come across as weak, but in reality I have strength now that I didn't have before. This happened when I was about 17 years old. I had just gotten a job at Dollar General, and I was working the late shift. I had to walk home because my car had blown up shortly before I got the job. My neighborhood is relatively safe, just the occasional crackhead or drunk roaming around at night, but they did not bother anyone. One night when I was getting ready to close, this hipster guy comes in and he starts asking weird questions about products that we don't sell. He then locks the doors. I told him he wasn't allowed to lock the doors like that. He slapped me really hard and told me to shut the fuck up. Then he pulled out a knife. I ran and hid in the back area where we keep the overstock. He started calling out to me, "Kathy, where are you? Come on, Kathy. Give me what I want, and I won't kill you." I was scared to death. I could only assume that he wanted to rape me. I hid and snuck around the boxes, trying to make sure that I did not knock anything over. I had to make it back to the front of the store and get out. I was unable to get out from the loading area because I needed a key card in order to open the door, and only the managers have key cards. The creepy hipster guy found me and snatched me up by my hair and put the knife to my throat and told me to lay still and it would all be over soon. I was scared to death. In fact, I was so frightened that I pissed on myself, which enraged the hipster. "You nasty fucking bitch. How am I supposed to fuck you when you have piss all over you?" he screamed at me as he yanked on my hair as hard as he could. For some odd reason, the dollar store that I worked at had a shower. No other store I have ever seen had a shower. The hipster guy threw me in the shower and demanded that I washed myself off as he pulled out a gun. I stood there in the shower and rinsed off, with tears streaming down my face. He threw me a towel and told me to get to my car and don't do anything funny. I told him that I don't have a car. This enraged him even more. "Fine then, lay down and don't make a fucking sound." I begged him not to do anything to me. He laughed at me. "I'm going to get what I came here for, even if I have to kill you," he replied. He then fired his gun at the roof, and I guess he wasn't paying attention, or by the grace of God, the bullet came down and landed in his skull. I watched in horror and relief as blood leaked from the top of his head and his lifeless body fell to the floor. I called the police, and they knew who he was. Apparently this guy had attempted to rape 3 other women and was successful in 1 other case. The paramedics took his body, and they checked me, etc. The manager fired me because she said it was my fault for not taking proper precautions. Yeah, fuck you, bitch. If you're new, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, as it really helps me out. And if you are already subscribed, welcome back and thank you for subscribing.